I didn't find out about The Big Sick until fairly close to its release date, but the moment I realized it was based on events in Kumail Nanjiani's life, I wanted to go see it.
Emily and I started dating, and when we were first dating, just a few months in, she fell into a coma. And it's a comedy, I promise you it is.
I'm not like an obsessive superfan of Nanjiani, but I have really enjoyed the stand-up of his I've seen, and I was interested in learning more about him as a person. Or at least in seeing a version of him as a person. I'm not someone who dismisses or refuses to see any movie based just on its genre, but in the realm of lackluster films, romantic comedies are more likely to be an unpleasant experience for me than anything else. A bad comedy is miserable, but a bad romantic comedy is, for me, like having my fingernails pulled out one by one. It's insulting to me as a woman for a studio to say, "Here, we made this just for you," and then have to sit through the most sexist, cliched, contrived, joyless garbage a PG-13 rating can provide. I've enjoyed some romantic comedies, because obviously not every film in a genre is going to automatically suck, but the closest thing to a rom-com I've really loved is Punch Drunk Love, which is an uplifting exploration of pain and neuroses as much as it is anything romantic. Of course, The Big Sick isn't just some throwaway rom-com. It's definitely molded here and there to fit into that genre, but there's too much personality and there are too many small, genuine moments for it to be forgettable or cliched. My number one response to this film and takeaway from it was, it's cute. It's very, very sweet without ever becoming trite or saccharine. I would be really interested in a breakdown of what was actually pulled from their lives versus what was embellished, exaggerated, or made up, but without looking into it, it's all fairly believable and realistic without getting too heavy or boring. The casting choices and the acting are both perfect. I haven't seen Silicon Valley, so apart from some bit voice acting parts, I didn't really have anything to gauge Nanjiani's acting ability by. But he comes across as believable and sympathetic and surprisingly emotionally engaging, especially during heavier scenes. And some of the funniest gags in the film are just close-ups on his face. His relationship with his girlfriend, now real-life wife Emily Gordon, played in the film by Zoe Kazan, is believable, and Kazan makes a sizable impression despite being absent for much of the film. Her parents, Holly Hunter and Ray Romano, are imbued with a ton of energy and a flawed humanity that is charming. Kumail's parents, Adil Akhtar and Anupam Kher, and other Pakistani characters in the film aren't given as much screen time or characterization. Or if they are given close to equal screen time, so much of it is devoted to repetitive scenes where his parents try to set him up with single Pakistani women in arranged marriages that it feels like less.
I wonder who that could be.
I'm guessing it's a young single Pakistani woman.
Apart from a few short moments, they're also denied the full range of humanity afforded others in the film. I would be more critical of this if it wasn't for the fact that the screenplay was written by Nanjiani and his wife, and the story, a large part of which is by necessity devoted to him getting to know Emily's parents and building a relationship with them, is told from his perspective. I don't know what it feels like to exist as everything your culture and your religion reject to the extent that you risk being disowned by your family, and Nanjiani's feelings on that obviously play into how the story is told. As far as the portrayal of these characters and of Islam in the film goes, I don't really feel like it's my place to comment with much judgment, especially as the film was co-written by and stars an actual ex-Muslim Pakistani man. Tasbih Hirwiz wrote an interesting piece called "The Only Muslims Hollywood Likes Are the Secular Ones," and it's definitely worth checking out as an assessment of this aspect of the film. I don't 100% agree with her. Without getting into spoilers, at least one of Nanjiani's suitors is given a fair amount of emotional weight even with limited screen time, and his family members, especially his father and his brother, are sympathetic. And his denial of his parents' wishes and religion and the way he hides it all from Emily is ultimately played as selfish and callous, rather than just, haha, look at all the funny dumb Muslims. I think it's important to bring up Hirwiz's critique though, as she's a lot closer to the film's subject matter than I am, and because I agree that apart from Kumail, the white characters get way more screen time, depth, and audience sympathy. But again, this is a film told from the perspective of a Pakistani immigrant who loves stand-up and Shaun of the Dead and Vincent Price and the X-Files, and didn't at all fit into the rigid expectations his parents had for him. So to people in a similar position to his, with a perspective closer to his, it might ring more true and mean something that way. Nanjiani is also the hero of the film, but at times he comes off as meek or self-centered or immature, and I appreciate his refusal to valorize himself for his debut as a lead in a romantic comedy. I obviously don't know all of the details of this period of Nanjiani's life, but I definitely appreciated the fact that each character had some level of ugliness and flaws to them. I'm coming right off of Okja and Baby Driver for this review, and both of those are much more cinematic than The Big Sick. Maybe it seems demanding to want editing and cinematography to be creative and used to the fullest possible extent in every film, but I do think more could have been done with both of them to service this movie's story. If you want more information on what I mean here, What Does Cinematic TV Really Mean by Matthew Zoller Seitz and Chris Wade, and Edgar Wright, How to Do Visual Comedy by Tony Zhou, are really good primers and how more effort and creativity in aspects like mise-en-scène, as in everything on screen, editing, sound cues, whatever, can really lift up a work as a whole. The Big Sick definitely isn't just strung together improv like a lot of recent comedies seem to be. Even though there are a couple of scenes that feel that way, and a couple of weird edits or bits of ADR that were a little bit distracting, it's confidently put together. I just wish a relatively unique story could have been told in a more unique way formally. There's one shot in particular I really loved that stood out to me, and that shot seems to have been mined heavily for trailers and promotion of the film, but I won't show it here because I like it better in context. honest. But the rest of it just looks like a normal indie comedy. Which is fine, but I'd enjoy some more experimentation and something closer to the creativity of the films and shows Nanjiani espouses his love for both in the movie and in real life. Weirdly, I don't think any of the stand-up in the film was very funny, though it's used more as a device to elaborate on Nanjiani's social circle and personality and to move the story forward than anything else. I appreciated the fact that the stand-up wasn't there to show off how super funny Nanjiani is on stage, since that isn't remotely the focus of the film, though more jokes in general wouldn't have hurt. Overall, I definitely recommend seeing The Big Sick. It's very sweet and very cute and emotionally engaging, and it's a good, solid, fun, smart rom-com. Thanks for watching! If you enjoyed this, please check out my other reviews or my video essays. I use a clip of Nanjiani's stand-up at the end of my essay about video games. If you have some spare money, please consider donating to my Patreon so I can keep talking about movies on the internet. Thanks!